This is always my jumping off point. I want to come into something that is set at the very basic, start an idea, then I'll modulate each individual voice as the idea kind of dictates. So let me walk you through how I patch everything up. Okay, so we're just going to start with my clock. So my main sequencer is the Oxy 1 Mark II, and this is going to be my main clock, but we need to get the clock out of the Oxy and into the rig. All right, so here's my Oxy pipe, and I've got a clock out, and I've also got a reset out. So what I usually always do is I'll take the clock out of Oxy and into a multiple. That way I have a couple of choices as I start to progress an idea, and I was like, oh, I need another clock source. I'll have two open. So let's hook up Metron. So I'm gonna use a copy of that clock and into clock input, and I'm also going to use the reset out of the pipe here for Oxy and into the reset of Metron. So I'm going to hit play on the Oxy. It's off screen, but you'll see should see the Metron start to move around. There it goes. So let's stop it, and then we're going to push play again. We should see it go back to counter 1, current step 1. Yep, cool. So the reset's working. The clock's working, and we should see a little green light here. Just double check. There you go. So you can always tell if it's on or not. Okay, next we're going to set up the end of chain, and we're also going to set up our effects returns. So let's do end of chain first. So I'm going to go from the board brain Exelon into this high pass filter from ShackMat into the noise engineering polydactyl. And what I use this for is just to kind of glue everything together and add a little bit of saturation here. I'll limit on the lows and highs. So we go from the polydactyl to the meta. So we go from meta into board brain monitor and monitor out to my speakers or my computer. So let's get everything patched up. So let's do the end of chain first. So I'm going to take the mix out into this high pass filter, and the filter into noise engineering here, left and right. See if you'll fit. Yep. And then from there, we're going to go into meta, left out to left in, right out to right in. And then we're going to go from meta to monitor. Perfect. And right out to right in. All right. Okay, that's the end of chain. So let's do the effect sense. So I've got Make Noise Reverb for reverb and the Strymon Magneto for my delay. Okay, so let's patch up the reverb. So I'm going to use Effects Send 1 from Board Brain into Reverb, then back into the Board Brain, return 1. There we go. So this top row here is going to, let me put everything back down to 0. This top row here is my reverb, and this bottom row here is Strymon Magneto, so the delay. So let's get that patched up. So effects send to Magneto in, left and right, and then back out of Magneto into the return, number 2. There we go. There is the effects. Easy peasy. So for my 2 melodic voices, the Oxy pipe's going to come into play again. CV1 and gate 1 is going to be voice 1, and CV2 and gate 2 is going to be voice 2, and I'm going to show those just in a second. The other quick note to make is I already have the outs of all of my voices already in Board Brain here. So this brown one is my bass voice, this is my lead voice, this is a percussion voice, it's Fracture by WMD. So this channel here has clutch, chimera, and cymbal 909. This guy is the Elser, which I'll show you that in a second as well. And channel 6 is going to be my kick. So the other quick patch is going to be Cosmic Debris by WMD. So I'm just going to take the left out to in left, out right to in right. And Cosmic Debris I usually will use for an extra voice. I might send some percussion through it, I might send a voice through it, but I always leave this patched up here, and then I'll decide as the idea starts to take some shape if I want to include this or not. So the other thing to note is I'm going to use Metron as a clock source as well. Track 15 here is all quarter notes or downbeats, and that is my clock going to Magneto. And then on 16 are eighth notes, and that is going to clock Cosmic Debris, at least for a starting point. So let's clock Cosmic Debris here out of 16, and let's clock Magneto. All right, so that's done. So I always start off Magneto with, it's set for right now as a dotted eighth note. That's usually where I start at. I just like the sound of a dotted eighth note, especially with my kick. But if I decide to do something else later on down the line, I'll switch it up. Okay, so here's voice one, which is usually always my bass line. 2 oscillators, filter, low pass filter, high pass filter, envelope, VCA. So let's get this thing patched up. So I'm going to use a multiple or stackable out of CV1, and we're going to put one of these guys in volt per octave on one oscillator, same with the second oscillator. This is always just a really very basic subtractive patch. Oscillator 2, square wave into input 3. And I usually always start my bass voices off the same, which is going to be a triangle wave to input 1 and a square wave into input 2. The reason why I include a triangle wave, number one, is I have 3 inputs here, but more importantly, I like to have the fundamental of each note just have a little bit more weight to it, and this triangle helps a little bit with that. I'm not going to add pulse width modulation as of yet because I let the idea dictate what I'm going to do. I'm obviously going to modulate the square wave, but I don't know if I'm going to use an LFO. Am I going to use something maybe more rhythmical? I have plenty of choices, but I usually save that choice until later on. So let's continue the patch here. So we're going to take the ladder filter out into this high pass filter. This high pass filter out. This is going to get stretched over here to the audio in of the VCA. And then we'll take one of the outs of the envelope or contour generator, and whoops, I don't have a long enough cable. The out into the frequency control voltage, and the second out is going into CV1 right there. So the next thing we need to do is hook up our gates. All right, so we're going to take gate 1 and we are going to kind of snake this through some of these cables here. I really dislike cable clutter and try to keep it as neat as I possibly can. So that's going to go into gate 1 here. All right, so let's give this a quick test, and I just want to see if it's getting a gate signal for right now. So let me push play, and yep, cool. Okay, we've got a gate. Excellent. We're going to test out the sounds here in a second, but let's continue on with the lead voice. Okay, here's my lead voice, and that lead voice is going to get patched up just like the bass voice was for the most part. So we need to add some CV information to this. So CV2 out of the pipe, going to go into the glide right there. Then I'm going to use a stackable cable and take the CV out into volt per octave on the second oscillator, and on the first oscillator we'll do this little guy here. All right, so we're going to send a saw wave into the first input of the filter. Same with this guy, it's going to be another saw wave, and we will do, and the out from the filter into the VCA, and we are going to use a different envelope. The envelope I use for voice 2 is going to be this ACL envelope times 3. So the first row here is going to be the filter. The second one is going to be our VCA. So let's patch up the envelope. So we're going to take gate 2 into gate 1 here. So we're going to send EG1 into our filter, and we're going to send EG2 into our VCA. All right, so I'm going to hit play on Oxy again and see if we're getting gate signals. And we are. There we go. So this third row here is going to be a way for me to duck hi-hats and the voices out of the way of the kick. Okay, so I'm going to use trigger 1 here, and I'm going to multiply this. And let's give it some triggers. A normal kick drum. Let's hit play on Oxy. And we've got a signal here, so we know that it's working. So one of the triggers is going to go into my kick drum that we're going to patch up here in a second. And we're going to send another copy of this trigger into the third row of this envelope. So let's do that. And we should see the light going out here. And I'm going to take the negative because I want an inverted envelope to be able to pull down whatever sound we want to choose. And what I'm going to do is, for now, is put this into another multiple, and we see the red blinking so we know it's getting a signal. I can control how much ducking we do with the release and a little bit of decay. And okay, so that's all set up. We've got our voices set up, so let's move on to the percussion. Okay, so here are the cast of characters of percussion. So we've got our kick drum, which is going to go into a filter. We have Fracture from WMD, which is going to be my claps. We have Clutch. LP ZW Elster is a 909 clone. We've got Chimera here, which is kind of a shaker, some other odd sounds, and then Cymbal 909 from Tip Top. All four of those modules are going to get fed into this twin VCF by Vermona, and let's patch everything up. So we're going to take a copy of the trigger signal from the buffered mult into our kick drum. We've got a signal right there. So let's patch it into the filter. As you can see, I use lots of filters with percussion just because I want to be able to design the sounds a little bit, have a little bit more control over than just the volume with the fader. There's input 2. Okay, you're good. So let's send a trigger to Fracture. I'm going to use lane 3 and 4 from Metron into the trig and tick inputs. We're going to use 5, the closed hat of Clutch. 6 is going to be our open hat. And the same is going to be true for the Elster. So 7 is closed. 8 is going to be open. Chimera is going to be 9 and 10. So from Metron to trig. And 10 is going to be the accent. So then we've got 11 from Metron going into the ride gate. Okay, so all the triggers are set up. You can see everything kind of blinking. All right, so let's get everything into these filters. So I'm going to take the out of Clutch into this mixer here. And same with Chimera and same with the cymbal. As you can see, I'm trying to use the same colors just so everybody can kind of see exactly what's going on here. Just follow the colors. And then, let's see, right out. Whoops, let me put you in 2. I'll put you into 3. And then we'll take the out of this mixer into the top input here, and we've got signal going into that. Okay, so that's all set up. We still need to do Elser, so let's do another yellow cable out and into the bottom here, and we should barely see the light there. Okay, so we've got everything patched up. This is always my starting point. All right, so now the next step is to make sure that we can hear everything. Sometimes I do it per voice, but with this tutorial, I figured let's just get everything patched and then we'll listen to everything. So here's a bird's eye view. So let's start with voice 1. Let me throw some headphones on. All right, so let's test out the bass voice. We've got sound. Do we have reverb? We do, and do we have delay? We do, super. Let's go to voice 2. Let's reverb. Cool. All right, we got that going on. Let's move over to the percussion. Let me unmute the kick. All right, sounded good. Let's go to Fracture. Super. Let's try this hat here, Clutch. Okay, Clutch is working. Let's go to Elser. Yep. Okay, let's go to Chimera. All right, and let's try cymbal. So now we're going to do a little bit of gain staging just to see if all the levels are good against each other. So let's bring in voice 1. Give it some delay, why not? Let's bring in voice 2. for right now, I think that's okay. So let's keep this going. Let's bring in all of our percussion, kick, fracture. Fracture seems to be a tad loud. There we go, better. Hats. Bring in the other hat. Lower the gain on Elser here. Okay, and Chimera. And let's try cymbal. All right, I think for right now, all the levels seem to be doing their job. Nothing's screaming in front except for fracture, which we brought down. So I start with the vanilla setup, which is what we see. And from there, I start with an idea, kind of like what we have going now. It's not the best idea, but it's a starting point. And from there, as I start to jam out the idea, I start to think, oh, this would be cool if I try to modulate this, maybe I do this. Any modulation source I have, I'm probably going to take advantage of it, but I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to get the idea grounded and go, okay, this is what I'm doing. Then I modulate. So hopefully that helps. I'll see you in the next video.